All right, Cowboys Nation, let's get into it. The offseason is officially here, and the big question on everyone's mind is, who are the Cowboys going to chase in free agency? You know the drill. Dallas has needs all over the roster, and this year feels like one of those moments where the front office could actually make some noise. We're talking running back, offensive tackle, edge rusher, linebacker, cornerback, and safety. 6 key areas that could shape the entire direction of the team next season, depending on what happens in free agency and what the Cowboys do with their own guys. And yeah, I'm not just talking about the obvious names. There are a lot of options out there, some bigger, some smaller, but all worth considering. Let's start with running back, because if the Cowboys lose Javonte Williams, they need a plan. And one of the most intriguing names out there is Breece Hall from the Jets. Now, Hall has had a roller coaster of a career so far, but there's no denying the talent. I think he's going to want out of New York, and if he hits free agency, he's going to be near the top of a lot of teams' wish lists. He might even be the best running back available, even compared to Javonte. Hall has been limited by the supporting cast around him, and the Jets have never really built a true run-first identity that suits his skill set. He's explosive, he can make defenders miss, and he could be a real game-changer when he's in the right system. For Dallas, that could be huge, especially if they want to take pressure off the passing game and get the offense back to being balanced. Now, if you want a more consistent, reliable option, Travis Etienne is still on the radar. We've talked about him before, and the truth is he hasn't been as dynamic or as efficient as Javonte Williams was when he was healthy. But the guy has multiple seasons of 1,000-yard rushing, and that kind of consistency matters. He might not be the flashiest option, but he fits the mold of what the Cowboys need. A back who can handle volume, protect the football, and contribute in the passing game. If you want a runner with a little more juice, Etienne is still a solid pick. Another name to watch is Kenneth Walker from Seattle. He had a strong season, clearing 1,000 yards, and he's been a productive back when healthy. The Seahawks have had some injury issues and haven't always been efficient in their run game, but they've been committed to it. Walker didn't get the goal line work consistently, but he still showed he could be a reliable, physical runner. If the Cowboys are looking for someone who can grind it out and help control the clock, Walker fits that bill. Then there's J.K. Dobbins, a player we've discussed a lot over the last year. The biggest question with Dobbins is always the same. Can he stay healthy? When he is on the field, he's a difference maker. He's explosive, tough, and he can break tackles in a way that few backs can. But he has struggled with injuries, and that makes him a risky investment. If Dallas is willing to take a chance, though, Dobbins could be a massive upgrade. It's just a question of whether he can stay on the field long enough to justify the contract. And if you lose Javonte and want to fill the role with a cheaper option, Tyler Allgeier could be a dark horse candidate. He's been doing a lot of outside zone work in Atlanta, but he's shown he can be more effective when he's not solely reliant on that scheme. Interestingly, he tends to play well every other year, and then he has a down year. He's the kind of player who could be had for a lower price if the Cowboys get priced out of the top running back market. But make no mistake, the priority for Dallas should be re-signing Javonte Williams if they can, because he fits the system and has shown what he can do when healthy. Now, let's talk offensive tackle, because if the Cowboys decide to move on from Terrence Steele, the options out there are not exactly exciting. This is one of those positions where you don't want to be desperate in free agency, because the really good tackles rarely hit the open market. But if Dallas needs to replace Steele, there are still a few names to consider. Braden Smith is one of them. His overall grade is very similar to Steele's, maybe a little better in pass protection, but not quite as strong as a run blocker. The concern with Smith is his age. He's getting up there, and that matters, especially at a position where you need guys who can stay healthy and consistent year after year. Still, if Dallas wants a veteran presence who can hold the line in pass protection, Smith is worth a look. Jonah Williams is another option. He has ties to Clayton Adams from their time in Arizona, and that familiarity could be valuable. The problem is he wasn't very good this past season. The Cardinals' offense struggled, and the offensive line was a mess, especially without Clayton Adams. So there's a chance Williams could bounce back in a new environment, but there's also the risk that his best days are behind him. He's also had injury issues, which is another red flag. Cam Robinson is a name that has been bouncing around the league for a while now, and he might be a swing tackle option for Dallas. The problem is his recent performance has been rough. He's become something of a journeyman, and that inconsistency is a concern. But if the Cowboys are looking for depth and a low-risk option, Robinson could be someone they consider. Trent Brown is another veteran tackle to watch. When he's healthy, he can be very good. But the issue is that he hasn't played many snaps over the last few seasons. He's been injured, and that makes him hard to trust. If Dallas is willing to take a gamble on his medicals, he could be a big upgrade. But it's a big if. Then there's Kelvin Beachum, who is basically a slightly worse version of Jonah Williams. The problem with the offensive tackle market is that there just aren't many great options. If you cut Terrence Steele, you're likely looking at a group of players who are either past their prime or have significant injury concerns. That's why it's so important for the Cowboys to think long-term and not just chase a quick fix in free agency. Now let's shift to defense, where the real excitement is. The edge rusher market is wide open, and the Cowboys need help there. One of the biggest names available is Trey Hendrickson. He's been a dominant pass rusher when healthy, putting up 17.5 sacks in back-to-back seasons. The problem is injuries have slowed him down, and he's getting older. He might be looking for a one-year deal to prove he still has it, and that could be a risk worth taking. Pair him with a guy like Micah Parsons, or bring back another piece to complement him, and you could have a really dangerous pass rush. Jalen Phillips is another name to watch. He was traded to the Eagles and showed flashes of being a disruptive pass rusher. The issue with Phillips is consistency. He could be dynamic, but he's not always a finisher. He creates pressure, but it doesn't always turn into sacks. If the medicals check out, he could command a hefty contract, which might be too rich for Dallas. But if they believe in his potential, he could be a high-reward target. Then you have the veteran mercenary options like Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. Mack is a legend, but he's older, and it's unclear how much he has left. Still, if he plays a full season, he could give you 5 to 7 sacks, which is valuable. He's one of the most consistent players in the league, even if he's not the same player he was a few years ago. Bosa is another high-profile option, but injuries have been a concern, and his sack numbers haven't improved recently. If Dallas wants to bring in a veteran edge rusher on a one-year deal, these are the kinds of names you look at. Finally, there's Quinnen Williams, the former first-round pick from the Colts. He's been productive in the past, and even though this past season was a bit down, he still has the talent. If the Cowboys can get him at a reasonable price, he could be a strong addition. He's the type of player who fits the Cowboys mold, a former high draft pick who still has upside and could thrive in a new system. So that's the start of the free agency picture. The Cowboys have decisions to make, and the choices they make in the next few months could define the roster for years. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think Dallas should prioritize? Running back, tackle, edge, linebacker, corner, or safety? And who is the one free agent you want to see in a Cowboys uniform next season? Now, let's keep going because the Cowboys free agency picture does not get any less interesting when you move past the obvious positions. The defense, in particular, is where you can feel the pressure building. The edge rusher market is loaded with names, but the question is, who is actually worth the money and who is going to be a gamble? The Cowboys have to get this right because without a consistent pass rush, this defense will continue to struggle to make the kind of impact plays that win games. One of the biggest names that could be in play is Devin Lloyd, the linebacker from the Jaguars. This guy had a breakout season and really boosted his stock. Even though the tackle numbers might not jump off the page, the quality of those tackles is what stands out. He was excellent in coverage and showed real growth as a complete linebacker. The Jaguars made a mistake turning down his fifth-year option, and now they're paying the price. He's going to command a huge contract if he hits free agency, and the Jaguars are going to try to keep him. But the truth is, he's going to be expensive. We're talking something in the range of $15 to $16 million per year, maybe even more, depending on how the market shakes out. Quincy Williams is another name that has been linked to the Cowboys for a while, and honestly, it makes a lot of sense. The Jets linebacker has been productive in the past, and his brother is already in Dallas. That connection alone isn't enough, but when you combine it with the Cowboys' need at linebacker, it starts to feel like a match. Williams had some issues in New York this past year, and his time there didn't end smoothly. But he's shown he could be a high-impact player, If the money is right, this is the kind of move Dallas could make because they love to sign players who fit their physical, aggressive style. The Cowboys have a history of doing things that make sense on paper, and Quincy Williams fits that mold. Quay Walker is another former first-round pick who could be on the Cowboys' radar. He took a step back this past season, at least in terms of overall impact. The tackle numbers were there, but the Packers' linebacker core as a whole seemed to decline. Walker is a great athlete and has shown he could be a playmaker, but he's also missed games. There's a question of consistency, and that matters when you're paying a premium. Still, he's the type of player who could thrive in a new system, especially if he's surrounded by the right supporting cast. The Cowboys will have interest, and so will plenty of other teams. Alex Singleton is a name that might make more sense depending on who the Cowboys' next defensive coordinator is. The Broncos linebacker had an outstanding season, racking up a massive number of tackles and staying healthy. He's the kind of guy who is a tackling machine, but his fit depends on the defensive scheme. If the Cowboys go with a coordinator who wants a more traditional, downhill linebacker, Singleton could be a perfect fit. He's not necessarily a flashy player, but he's consistent, tough, and reliable. That kind of player can be a real asset in a defense that needs stability. Eric Wilson is another linebacker to watch. He's been a bit of a journeyman, but he's shown he can produce in the right system. He played well in the Brian Flores defense this past year, and his tackle for loss numbers were impressive. The problem is he's not always been consistent over the long term. But if the Cowboys believe they can get the best out of him, he could be a solid addition. He's the type of player who can come in and contribute right away, and sometimes that's exactly what you need. Now, let's move to the secondary, because this is where the Cowboys have a huge need. The cornerback and safety markets are filled with names, but the Cowboys have to be smart. One of the most interesting players is Jamal Dean. The Cowboys are likely to let him hit free agency, especially with the recent investments they've made in the quarterback room. Dean had a solid season, and his quarterback rating allowed was impressively low. He didn't get beat often, and he was a steady presence on the outside. He's older and has had some health concerns, but if Dallas wants a proven piece on the outside, he stands out. Another name to consider is Alontae Taylor. He had a strong season with the Saints, showing inside-outside flexibility. His completion rate allowed was higher, but he made plays and had a good number of pass breakups. He also scored a few touchdowns, which shows he could be a playmaker. Taylor has been linked to several teams, and he could be a good fit for Dallas if they want a versatile corner who can play multiple roles. His value depends on what the Cowboys want to do schematically, but he's definitely a player worth monitoring. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. What began as a moment of televised reaction quickly turned into the latest rumor swirling around the league's loudest franchises. During a heated segment, Stephen A. Smith was seen laughing uncontrollably, almost gasping for air, as he delivered a familiar verdict. He claims he warned everyone that the Cowboys' offense would never carry them anywhere meaningful. The clip spread fast, and behind the laughter lies a growing sense that this wasn't just entertainment, but a reflection of conversations already happening inside NFL circles. According to speculation, Smith's reaction echoed whispers from executives and former players who privately question whether the Cowboys are stuck in an offensive identity crisis. The laughter, some believe, wasn't aimed at a single performance, but at a pattern that insiders say has become predictable. A scheme described as conservative, timing that feels off, and an inability to impose fear on opposing defenses are all being quietly debated around the league. Rumors suggest that frustration is building not only among fans, but within the organization itself. There's talk that patience with the current offensive philosophy may be thinning, even if no one is ready to say it publicly. Smith's exaggerated amusement may have struck a nerve because it aligned too closely with what many already suspect, that the Cowboys are relying on hope rather than evolution. Speculation has also grown that this moment could fuel louder debates on sports television and radio, increasing pressure on decision-makers in Dallas. When a personality as prominent as Stephen A. Smith reacts with laughter instead of outrage, it sends a different message. It implies resignation, as if the script is already written. Whether fair or not, the rumor mill now suggests that the Cowboys are becoming an example rather than a threat. Smith's words, wrapped in humor, may end up symbolizing a deeper concern that without bold changes, the offense will remain the punchline of conversations it once dominated. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.